Well, hello there. You're watching the press preview. A first look then at what is on the front pages. Time to see what's making the headlines with the political editors of the Daily Mirror and The Sun, Pippa, Crerar and Harry Cole. Welcome to both of you with us, I know, right through until just before midnight. So, as ever, let's take a look at the front pages. Omicron cases in the UK double every 3 days, the Times says, as they quote experts who say it'll be the dominant strain in the UK within weeks. The Daily Telegraph says the booster rollout is at a standstill and write about a blame game in Whitehall over the speed of the rollout. The Yorkshire Post has a story on the government's crackdown on illegal drugs, writing that thousands of children are exploited by criminal organisations. The Guardian speaks to a former diplomat who insists that UK government bureaucracy left Afghans to die when they couldn't escape during the fall of Kabul. The Financial Times understands the US Securities and Exchange Commission is scrutinising an entertainment company, which is part of Donald Trump's business empire, for alleged financial irregularities. The Metro even has details of the Danish Ryder Cup golfer accused of sexually assaulting a woman on an aeroplane. And The Sun calls Prince Harry Mr. Nonsense after he suggested that people who are unhappy at work should quit their job. Yeah, who walks out? Pippa, Crerar and Harry Cole are here. Welcome to both of you. Well, plenty to discuss in the world of the Omicron variant, making a number of the front pages, Pippa, including The Times, who, like one scientist we spoke to, has spoken to people suggesting that in the UK it's doubling every 3 days. And we are weeks, a month, maybe a bit more away from it being the dominant variant. Is that the lie of the land now?
Yeah, the suggestion seems to be that the variant, which we already knew was spreading incredibly quickly, has done that in the UK as well, and that the cases are doubling every 3 days, which would very quickly see it becoming the dominant strain. Initially, scientists thought that this might take place in the next few months. It now looks like it could take place within a few weeks. I think we had 336 cases of Omicron now that have been identified. The ministers expect it to be substantially more than that. Obviously the concern is that we still don't know yet the severity of the variant on people. That's not likely to be known for sure until probably sort of sometime in the next 10 days or so.
Pippa, I'm going to stop you there. Apologies, you keep breaking up, and we're only getting many of your words, but not all of them. So, Harry, we will redial you, I think, is probably the best thing. Harry, so all right the way through this article in The Times, Professor Neil Ferguson of Imperial College, who we know, obviously, who sits on the government's nerve tag advisory group, said that a useful early measure of Omicron cases suggested a doubling time of 3 days or less. Scientists at the UK Health Security Agency have drawn similar conclusions. Internal government estimates suggest a doubling time of between 3 and 5 days. And although sources stress they're not confident of the exact numbers, there is now a strong signal that the variant is more transmissible than Delta, which is worrying, isn't it, until we find out what it does to people.
That's right. So I think a lot of people who I've been speaking to in government who sounded quite chipper at the sort of back end of last week, hoping that actually all the signs were that the World Health Organization was saying it was milder, actually now sounding a bit downbeat. Now, there's no sort of suggestion that we're anywhere near the level of sort of pressure on the NHS yet that to see restrictions come into effect over Christmas, but there's whispers and talk now of quite a bleak January, because even if the disease is milder, if it does manage to sort of chip away at the vaccines and just more people get it across the board, inevitably down the line, there will be pressure on the health service. Now, it is early days. The Downing Street and the Department of Health, the Health Secretary, everyone is at pains to say this week, look, we just don't know. It's just too early to tell. Let's have a look at it at the back end of next week. And the government have promised to come back by the time Parliament breaks up for the Christmas holidays a week on Thursday with a clearer update. So if there is any changes to those restrictions, they will be announced within a sort of buffer period of the festive break.
Yes, and certainly the whole problem is that even if cases are generally mild, it translates into a large number of hospitalisations and severe disease. It's the sort of the old pyramid, isn't it, really? The Times, we looked at The Guardian there, but The Times is also quoting the scientist behind the Zoe COVID tracker app. I'm presuming they talk about Tim Spector, who said people should work from home and not go to Christmas parties if they have a sniffle. Should there be more basic things that the government could bring in now? And why are they so fixated that we should all be going to our rapidly being cancelled Christmas parties?
I'm not sure it is a fixation. I think it might just be more of a reflection of reality in the fact that, the nation is incredibly COVID weary. Chris Whitty popped up at one of the press conferences, I think about 10 days ago, to say, look, it's all very well us telling you to do something, but if people just ignore it, then it's a very different ballgame. A lot of polling now, publicly available polling, is showing that people are slightly at the end of their tether with being told what to do, and they're sort of taking it into their own hands. Now, the government provide free tests to anyone that wants to do them. They say wear a mask if you think you're going to be in an enclosed space. And unless you really do want to start, inflicting major damage to the hospitality industry by closing places or coming down harder or reintroducing social distancing, then actually there is a sort of limit to what the government can do. And there doesn't seem to be any political will, as far as I can tell, around the cabinet table for further restrictions anytime soon, until the evidence shows that the NHS really isn't unable to cope. And at the moment, hospitalisations are remaining low. Whether that remains the case after Christmas and into January, into February, into long winter remains to be seen. But as it stands, the appetite just doesn't seem to be there.
Yes, I suppose people take their lead from government, and if they repeat that you should continue with going into the office and having your Christmas party, then you that's how you behave. But the Times also quotes a report outlining the winter pressures facing the NHS and said that already more than 13,000 planned operations have been cancelled in the past 2 months. So whether you like it or not, COVID has an impact, does it not, in the operation of the health service?
Of course, absolutely, and that's always going to be the issue. Is what do you prioritise? Do you prioritise keeping hospitals clear for COVID patients, or do you prioritise the NHS catch-up that we've slightly hearing less and less of at the time? It's the same with the vaccine rollout. There's massive, sort of GP backlogs, and there's, GPs, if they're going to have to be signed up to this great big national British effort, as the PM and the leader of the opposition have called for, it means if GPs are jabbing, they're not seeing people. And there already was huge delays in getting GP appointments back to normal. So all of this is a trade-off. COVID has always been a trade-off. And I think now before, the last 18 months, the trade-off has been, protect the NHS, stay at home, at the sort of cost of the economy, whereas now I think the trade-offs are going to be a little bit more stark, and actually people are going to be presented a bit more of a stark option in the fact that Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor, for example, isn't prepared to turn on furlough schemes and underwrite businesses again unless he absolutely has to. And I think the debate about what the NHS is for and what GPs are for will come to the fore in the new year.
Yeah. Pippa, I know you've missed most of that. Just a quick thought on whether or not there should be measures like working from home in the run-up to Christmas, because the Christmas holidays in itself are a kind of circuit breaker, even though you are mixing intergenerationally with people, aren't they? So in a sense, there might be a pause for good news at the end of that, effectively.
Well, I certainly think that's what ministers are hoping. But apologies if Harry has already mentioned this, but scientists like Professor Tim Spector, who is behind the Zoe COVID tracker, was saying today that he thinks it's really important that they're working from home over Christmas for everybody, because there will still be some people that go in to offices, for office workers, I should say, that is, because that, like you say, will be a natural circuit break. And it's really important to try and delay the spread until such a point that scientists know for sure how they can best tackle the Omicron variant. We're obviously not there yet. So, what we don't want is them to leave this too late.
Harry, let's move on to your story. We've only got a minute left until the break, which is the double-page spread in The Sun on the very tragic case which leads to that headline, Arthur's Law. Tell us a bit about this then.
Well, as the Prime Minister speaks to us tomorrow about the closing a loophole, it's part of the government's sort of crime week, so to speak. There's a sentencing bill going through the Commons now. There's a loophole that's going to be closed in this bill, which would make premeditated killing of a child an automatically all-life sentence. Now, the Prime Minister is the first to acknowledge tomorrow that this will have little bearing on the tragic case of Arthur. But there was MPs and ministers lining up today in the House of Commons, the first time the Commons have really had a chance to talk about this tragic case, to say, look, whatever failings there were, the law needs tightening, and life should mean life. And I don't think there'll be, I don't think there are many people who oppose that. And it sort of strikes me as one of those sort of anomalies that you have to wonder why that wasn't law before.
Both of you stay there. Lots more from both. Oh, Pippa, you wanted to say something, but do you mind if you just hold your thought? Go on then, very quickly.
Just that it's not just about it's not just about the sentencing, obviously. It's also about the wider systemic issues that exist within the social care system, social work system, and failings that existed there, underfunded, major reform needed to make sure that more cases like this don't happen again.
Pippa, thank you very much indeed. Harry as well, see you in just a moment. Lots more still to come, including did UK bureaucracy leave Afghans to die during and after the fall of Kabul? We will discuss that next. Well, let's return now to Pippa Crerar from the Mirror and Harry Cole from the Sun. Welcome to both of you again. And certainly this makes the top of the Times, this concern that Western leaders have about Russia's ambitions in Ukraine. And clearly from that meeting tonight, Pippa, there is very little trust.
Yes, that's right. Well, it's not surprising, really. It's some time. It's 5 or 6 years since Russia last launched a bid, an invasion of the Ukraine, and that ended in a very sort of fragile peace process, and which is clearly broken down now. And you've heard Ukrainian politicians in recent days talking about the mass troops, 100,000 troops, including tanks and other military vehicles on their border, clearly very concerned that another invasion is imminent.
Oh, Harry.
There's this meeting tonight of the NATO.
Oh, honestly, it's like being in my house. This is what my house is like all the time. I think it's your Christmas tree lights that are affecting it. I know you've been. No, it's not your fault at all. Harry's been typing up this story anyway. During the break, trying to file it quickly. You've got 30 seconds to give us your headline for tomorrow's paper, Harry.
I'm not quite sure what the headline is. I can't see that on the computer. But no, certainly fears are soaring, and interesting that Biden is leading the way. Biden initiated this call. He's got he's trying to convince the Europeans of Russian, US intelligence that shows they say that this is actually very imminent. Some European leaders a little bit more skeptical about whether this is just a bluff by Putin.
We've run out of time. Apologies. I'll see you soon. Thank you.